Someone is asking, what what are the external signs that the emotional body and the concrete mental body of the individual are integrating between them? The sign that the mental body and the emotional body are integrated is that the individual no longer has a conflict between they think and what they feel. So what they feel is in harmony with what they think and vice versa. Most people are a bit split in this because they do not have these two bodies united, integrated. Someone is asking how, in practical life, the awakening of the right conscious reflects itself in practical life. When the right conscious starts to awaken, there is a development of intuition. The people become more intuitive, and this brings a tendency to solve things in a simple way, direct and harmonious. So when we are simple, direct, harmonious, without complications, this means that the right conscious is developing and is being applied. And if we can say anything about people who are being abducted since 1988, there are no cases like these since 1988. There is a repetition, an insistence, and a propaganda which tends to decrease the interest of people in the scientific, serious, and real side of the extraterrestrial presence here. But since 1988, there was a movement, and the Earth was closed to the presence of all extraterrestrials that are negative. Someone says they feel a lot of sadness and grief when they read the messages of Padre Pio, and that they suffer when they think of the pain of Padre Pio about humanity. And they ask if evolved beings suffer. There are many degrees of evolution, and there is a degree of evolution in which we become identified with the suffering of others. In the case of Padre Pio, he was deeply identified with the suffering of humanity, for example, with the suffering of the planet, because of the inner service that he was doing. So, regardless of the reason that the personal reasons he might have for this, he was deeply aware of the suffering of other people. This is a very different way to suffer. This is a way to be sharing with others what afflicts them, of your being transmuting a part of what afflicts other people or the world. So it's a different suffering. And those who do this as a service, of course, they may physically suffer, but there are no other kinds of suffering, moral suffering, they don't have, because the suffering is not theirs. It's a suffering they are absorbing to transmute and liberate others people. So it's a different kind of suffering. It's not the same suffering of those who is suffering and needs help. And someone else asks why Padre Pio talks a lot about soul and never about the monad. The, the man's constitution, the constitution of human beings, is widely spread in a simplified way within world religions, world and mass religions, to facilitate the understanding of people. So religions speak about the inner nucleus that is closest to the human consciousness, which is the soul. Religion rarely speaks about the monad. Sometimes it calls the monad spirit to create an openness. But in Christianity in general, the monad is not mentioned. It spirit is said, and that's what they mean. On page 87, 88, and 89 of the Esoteric Glossary, there is the full constitution of human beings, and then the person will see what Padre Pio was referring to and his intention to speak about the soul, because that is our closest nucleus with which we can identify ourselves. After we are identified with this soul, we are already connected with this soul, then there comes the connection with other nuclei. And when we start the connection with other nuclei, we no longer need formal religions. So formal religions have no reason to speak about other nuclei, all the more because most people would become confused with these things and they wouldn't be helped. People need to know what their next step is and what their next action is. It's very rare that someone may have broader information beyond those, because it may represent for some a kind of distraction and an occupation with something that at that moment might not be essential. But this constitution, this more complete constitution of human beings beyond the soul, has always been taught, and if we need it, we can find it. But the role of Padre Pio was to talk about the soul and to talk about God. So monad and bodies of light and all these things were not his role to discuss. Here someone says that after they heard the choir rehearsing, when they walk in other places, they listen, they can hear those voices both in the Ocan mountains and on the path that leads to the lodging. And it's wonderful to hear the voices of the choir added to other voices. It's because the chant of the choir has impregnated all the levels of Figueira. It is widely spread on the levels. And when a harmony, when a chant is established on a level, it starts attracting other energies that correspond to that. So if we hear the choir here, we hear the manifestation of that group. But if we hear the reflection of that on other planes, that is added by the forces of other planes that combine with that and make a rhythm with that. So of course, when as the perception internalizes, the choir expands because there are other energies that join that one. So this is one of the services rendered when you have a group like that, because besides the work that is executed on the physical plane, on the inner planes, the gathering of other consciousnesses, of other rhythms, can be heard as voices on the astral plane. Everything we do on the physical plane, external plane, resounds on the inner planes. So if we have a group working in a positive way, that on the inner planes not only reproduces itself, but expands. It increases in proportion, but therefore the service it renders also increases. Here, someone feels great need for us to treat people with equality. The person says that they have been here, and whenever they come here, they feel a difference of treatment for with some people, and they aspire a lot to be treated like others are. We in the study of the attributes of monastery, we have a group of attributes that is called equality, and we are studying it at each month, one attribute. Precisely from this group of equality, there are only two left to be studied. So equality here is something that can be present much more than normally is, because we have studied these attributes a lot. But as this person says that they do not feel treated as others who come here, who are here, for sure, at the first opportunity in the last two attributes that we may have to study, we will deepen and expand and insist on this topic. Now, we cannot expect an equality that is perfect and total when we act with others. Because for us to have this equality already integrated, we need to have, according to the attributes of this group, a greater approach to and closeness to certain inner nuclei, and have a certain closeness to a higher consciousness or with the one consciousness, because we become equal and we start to feel equal, and therefore treating people with equality to the extent that our consciousness approaches this one consciousness. While we are in this human and fragmented consciousness, it is natural that we may make differences. We make differences of treatment, of love, of conceptions. That is only natural. So this equality can only start to emerge in the being when they begin to have that which the attributes of equality call the higher encounter, our encounter with the higher nucleus of ours, when we cross certain portals. That is, when we take some steps, then we start to know equality and we start to apply this equality. And this is a path. And of course, although we are not yet in contact with the great consciousness and not having crossed some portals, we may be working this equality to attract this and to apply it. Because there are some things that are simple in equality. In equality, it's simple, because if you are well connected within yourself with your higher nuclei, you will probably see others in the same way. You will not dim the light of your eyes to some people and ignite the light of your eyes to other people. This is a lack of living equality within oneself, because not only everyone has the right, but they need the light of the eyes of others. But this equality can only be obtained when you have a higher contact, because on these deeper levels, in these higher levels, there's not as much heterogeneity. And then in contact with this, we learn to be equal and like everyone in the sense that the person is seeking. But of course, here by studying these attributes, we are seeking this. And those people who do not feel treated alike to others, they can help those who are not treating them equally to see that and perceive that. They can help them, they can show them, and this will help us to develop these attributes that are so deeply sought after. And here someone had a dream. They feel that it might contribute somehow for us to understand the new moment of the work of health and healing in Figueira. Before they fell asleep, they had an interrogation mark. They were wondering what would be the path and the trajectory of the work of healing at this moment here. So they dreamt right away with a luminous path. And on a lower level, almost touching the first path, there was another path, also luminous, but which allowed you to see signs of the ground. On the luminous path, you did not see the ground, but on the second luminous path, you could see the earth and you could see something that was beneath that light. Gradually, that lower level, that path that showed the earth, started to climb until it reached the level of this first one. And both paths united, becoming one broader path, homogeneous path without distinction, one path. And they perceive this path without end, endlessly projecting onto the horizon. So, this first path, luminous path, is inner healing, inner, simple and pure inner healing that is part of the work of healing, health and healing here. And the luminous path, with vestige of the ground and earth, is the work of health and healing in the face of the karmic processes of people, in the face of the karmic things that people bring. So the luminous path that concerns the karmic treatments, the treatments of health, this must rise and unite with the others so that the true work of healing can be done, which is not a work of health. So the word health in this sector concerns this luminous path through which we can see the earth, the ground. And the word healing concerns the other path, the path that is sheer light and in which the ground cannot be seen. So we would have to go through these two levels of work while we are treating through the healing sector our karmic things, our physical things, bodily things. We would have to give the greatest collaboration to these treatments so that the treatment can be elevated and we may then reach the path of healing, which is the other word of this title. The sector is called health and healing. That is, when we are liberated on the work of dealing with the more karmic and material and vital and human things, then we begin the work of healing. We start to tread another path, and we have to take care of these two levels at the same time. Both can be present in most cases. So you have observed that the proposal of life here, both for those who are more stable here and those who are here for a shorter time, includes a simplification of karma. So we try to simplify karma while we are here, rather than complicate our karma, precisely for us to be able to have this karmic healing more quickly and as quickly as possible and enter this other luminous path, which is the path of this union with our spirit. So the sector of healing and health and healing deals with these two paths, deals with these two kinds of process, sometimes in the same person, and in some individuals, they still do not take care of the second path. They take care only of the first path because certain physical facts are very strong. So there must be a concentration on the first one. But the second one may be present. If it's present in our consciousness, it will also be present on the treatment, in the treatments fostered by the inner planes. And when we are dealing with someone who is being treated karmically or with healing processes of health, we may always keep in mind the other kind of healing, the other path, because then the other healing, the spiritual healing, the inner healing, has possibilities to be prepared or to some extent start to take place. And someone says they do not have conditions to do the work on themselves because certain circumstances of their life do not allow it. This is not true. This is not real, because if external circumstances do not collaborate for us to do a certain path, we have to learn not to depend on these circumstances. So if these circumstances are very strong, this is happening for us to learn not to depend on this. And we should do the path regardless of any external circumstance, because the path is inner and does not depend on anything external up to a certain degree. And we have to learn to do what we have chosen to do and what we are supposed to do, regardless of what happens around us and others are doing, helping, or not. We have to learn this. And if the work on ourselves is done in silence, internally, in surrender of ours to a supreme being, you will realize, you'll notice that the work is done regardless of any external circumstance. This depends on us, does not depend on the circumstance. But the external circumstance can come and try to prevent some things from happening, but this depends exclusively on us, on our accepting or not this situation. And we do not at all depend on anyone or anything to do the due work that we are supposed to do on ourselves, because this is something between us and our bodies or between us and our lives. This does not depend on others and does not depend on any circumstance. In general, when there is this work, circumstances start to adapt, and when this work is supported by the Spirit, there is no one that can prevent this from happening. So everything is about ourselves and not about others or circumstances. Here, someone says that they find a lot of affinity between the teaching of Agni Yoga and everything they read here and is said here. So they are asking if these books published here and if all the work that is done here are Agni Yoga. Here, a work is done that is triple on three planes at the same time. Two of these planes we do very consciously, but the third plane, this of entering into inner activity, does not depend on any one of us consciously. So it's in the program in an ideal way, but there is nothing concrete that can guarantee that this is happening in the individual, because this is a maturity of the individual. This is a stage that is not under control. So here we work on three planes, or the work takes place in three planes. And on one plane, we are attuning our minds with higher topics that are beyond what is normal, topics that are not everyday life. We are attuning the mind with this. And we are seeking to have a disciplined life, in other words, a life that allows this to happen with regularity and stability, and so that this does not happen in a regular on and off way. So the idea is having a life that keeps us permanently connected with these topics and with these ideals, or with these intentions, or with these aspirations. This is a level of the work here. And there are people who manage to remain and stay fairly stable on this level. Another level of the work here is the development in the people of the spiritual gifts, of the spiritual virtues. And this comes with fidelity, with the union of purpose, with the decision, with regularity of the process. This is another level of the work here. So there are people who are on one level, and there are other people who are on another level, and people who are in both levels, mixing both and balancing both. But the third level of inner activity and of the people reaching deeper levels. This is a level that we externally do not think about it, and it's left to the inner path of people, inner side of people, and each one will gradually recognize their position within this third level. They gradually recognize their inner activity, if their inner activity is known to them, or if it's still not unknown, or if they are interested enough in this inner activity besides everything they do on other levels of the work. And this then is the other level here. So the work that is done here is a work of synthesis, a work of purification, our purification of beings, of life, of thought, of feeling. And this is what is done here. We can start on this path to feel the energies that work on the planes beyond our understanding and our practical life, and we can start to apply these energies here on the levels where we have our work. But this of our perceiving these energies and starting to bring them here is a learning process that we gradually do while we are on the path. There is a kind of energy that does not penetrate the terrestrial atmosphere, because on the terrestrial atmosphere there is a great mix of heterogeneous energies and forces. So this energy that cannot penetrate the terrestrial sphere, and this energy that must be brought to Earth someday, is the energy that we deep down seek to reach, to bring it here, although we know that it's still not possible. So this energy that is deeply original energy that concerns the models of everything that must happen on Earth. This does not penetrate completely the terrestrial layers, and those who tread this path that was described is a being that can work for this, or can gradually offer themselves to bring this energy here. This is a kind of electricity. This is an energy that approaches what we know as electricity. So we cannot insist for this to happen with people and in the life of people, because the organism of these people, the mental organism, the astral organism, the bodies of the person, especially the mental body, may not perhaps adapt immediately to this electricity. So in life, we have to be very careful to always keep in mind and insist on the first and the second layer, but on this layer of the inner activity, we have to be careful and leave it deeply to the person's decision, because any super stimulation beyond of this electricity that exists may disturb the balance of the person. So this must be left to the soul of the individual, of the inner being of the individual, and not to the criteria of the person. This which we try to attract in this third layer of the work, in our encounter with our inner activity, in our words, may be called first as a kind of electricity, and then as a material energy, however lucid it is. It's not blind. It's not this blind material force that does not know where it's going. We have to select internally what matter we are in contact with on the inner planes, on the internal planes. And this we call a lucid matter, not a blind matter that we know. It's a lucid matter. So, on this layer of the work, we deal with electricity and this kind of matter. And here, one strengthens the other, one completes the other. It is this electricity or this kind of electricity that we find on this third kind of work, on this third layer of the work, that opens to us the paths for us to contact other worlds, other civilizations, other beings of the hierarchy that are collaborating for all this inner process of ours. So this electricity is what opens this path for us. So we may see that we're in contact with this electricity, which is something very abstract and cannot be seen because certain paths, inner paths, are opening for us. We are perceiving that we are approaching other kinds of life, other kinds of consciousness. We perceive this. This means that this electricity is present and that other matter, which is up to us also to bring down here, and with this electricity is brought down here, is a matter that strengthens our consciousness. So when we deal with this layer of the work, we are not seeking to find any mental, emotional, or etheric physical thing. We are dealing with the strengthening of the consciousness. And this consciousness must be sharp, lucid. This consciousness must be determined. This consciousness must not be in duality. It must not be split. It must know what it wants and what it does not want. So here, this electricity unites to this material and more lucid part, and the third layer of the work takes place. So your consciousness becomes strengthened in what it must be strengthened, and it becomes rhythmic. It acquires a rhythm that we call electricity that allows it to open paths and bring to the present moment, to the life of today, the path of the future, that which is still not open for most people. These are the three layers of work here, the three layers of the work here. The first two layers we live very consciously, and this third one we gradually enter this layer as we gradually live. So life here must be very simple. It must be quite free, as disconnected from karmic things as possible with material things, so that this work may gradually take place. Many perceive this, others kind of feel, sense it, and others start to live this very openly. And those who start to live this openly, you can tell. You can tell because they are living here, they are taking care of everything here, but it's evident that that individual has a different life. And if they have another life clear for them, everything that is happening here does not affect them, does not disturb them, does not move them from their intention, from their position, and that which is their life purpose. So here we do not have any purpose for life on this earth. We have no proposal for this society or this civilization. The proposal here of life is for you to be in the experience of these things. It's not a proposal that people usually have. It is a life proposal that you may enter the consciousness of these things, and so that you may serve to bring this lucid matter, this electricity, these gifts. Bring these gifts down here, bring all these things to life, and this will do the work that it must do on everyone, in every being, in every soul, in every moment. And as it is an inner process, at some moments, this will work in the soul, and other moments, it will be acting in the spirit, and it cannot be seen. And at other moments, it may be reflecting presently, even in the external life of the person, and it can be seen because the person has a balance. They are in harmony, and this harmony is not from the earth. So the person gradually develops everything they have to develop, and in reality, they are living something else. In reality, they are in connection with other layers of the work, which is very important, very essential, so that these other two layers of the spiritual quest, of the mentalization, of practical life, of external life. This third layer is very important to maintain these other two in order, to maintain these two in harmony. So, this is the work here, because someone who is living inner life may not know what is happening, but they have a foundation. They have something safe and secure within them. They do not know what it is, but it's inner life. They are secure in inside, in to different degrees depending on the degree of inner life they have. So, and these degrees of inner life gradually reflect outside. They reflect what the person is into what they radiate, what they, in short, manifest. And that is seen, and we can see if they are more or less connected with the inner life that is taking place.